Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Abidemi. Welcome to today's class. Today, we'll be taking a look at measuring the cost of living. Measuring the cost of living. And after this section, you will understand the concept of inflation, understand the concept of deflation, understand the relationship between prices and the value of money, learn how to compute the consumer price index, and ascertain the inflation rate. Okay, so those are some of the things you're going to learn by the time we are done with this particular topic. Now, when we say cost of living, what are we referring to? The cost of living refers to the amount of money that you need to meet your needs or wants, such as electricity, water, internet, transportation, energy, housing, etc. It means how much you will require to live each day. The cost of living might become unbearable if the prices of goods and services are rising while income stays the same or while income stays constant. This leads us to what we call inflation. Right? So, in basic term, the cost of living refers to the amount of money, the amount of resources that we need to live each day, the amount of money that we need to live each day. All right. Now, let's go straight to inflation. So, what is inflation? Inflation can be defined as the increase in the general price level of goods and services. Inflation can be defined as the increase in the general price level of goods and services. I said inflation reduces the purchasing power of money, meaning you need more money to buy the same things. At the beginning, when I was talking about um, cost of living, I said that the cost of living might become unbearable if the prices of goods and services are rising while income stays the same. Okay, in that case, if I'm going to put it, it means that you have to spend more money on the same goods that you usually buy at a lesser amount. And if your income is not increasing, we could say that your purchasing power is decreasing. You, as a person, cannot buy as much as you want to buy to meet your needs. Okay? So, inflation reduces the purchasing power of money, meaning you need more money to buy the same things. The inflation rate is the percentage change in the price level from the previous period. It is essential to state that the value of money falls as the prices of goods and services increase, and the value of money increases as the prices of goods and services fall. And this relationship can be expressed as value of a unit of money equals 1 all over price. In addition, individuals could be caught up in what we call the money illusion. What is money illusion? Money illusion is when you take a look at the quantity of money that you have. Let's say you have about $10,000 in your bank account. Money illusion is when you are just focusing on the $10,000 you have in your bank account rather than focusing on what that $10,000 could buy, especially if you live in a country where the value of your money drops, from time to time. Okay. You have to be careful rather than looking at, oh, I have maybe, let's say you have, um, uh, let's say 100,000 naira, for example. I'm using Nigerian currency. Rather than looking at 100,000 naira, you got to look at what is it that 100,000 naira can buy. And so that will really, really guide you in how you, for example, invest your money, how you save your money, how you plan for the future. So money illusion is taking a look at the quantity of money that you have rather than taking a look at what that money can buy. Taking a look at what that money can buy. So I said money illusion is when people are eager about the amount of money that they physically have rather than what the money can buy. All right, you get it now. Now, let's take a look at the forms of inflation. The forms of inflation. In the forms of inflation, we can have hyperinflation or galloping inflation. We can have hyperinflation or galloping inflation. What is hyperinflation? Hyperinflation occurs when a country is experiencing a very rapid accelerating inflation, such that it almost renders the currency worthless. It can also be defined as an extremely rapid and uncontrollable increase in prices, usually exceeding 50% per month. All right, so we say the inflation rate of a country is hyper if it exceeds 50% per month. Exceeding 50% per month, you could have as much as 100, you could have as much as 150, you could have as much as 1,000. So it could be double digit, it could be three digits, it could be four digits. That is hyperinflation. Okay, this type of inflation is often caused by excessive money supply due to poor monetary policies, war, etc. Right. So one thing that countries are very uh, mindful of is to have excess money circulating the economy. You don't want that because it could render the value of a currency very low. All right. So countries are very uh, mindful about excessive money in circulation. Okay. Examples of countries that have experienced hyperinflation include Zimbabwe, Argentina, Germany. Okay. What then is galloping inflation? Galloping inflation, on the other hand, is when the inflation rate is above 10% but below 50%. Okay, so for galloping inflation, it is still a double digit, but it's less than 50%. Of course, countries who have hyperinflation, their country and their currency will be worse off than countries who have galloping inflation, which is less than 50% and greater than 10%. Galloping inflation is a double-digit inflation, while hyperinflation is double-digit or more, like I mentioned. So for hyperinflation, it could be double, it could be three digits, it could be four digits. Okay, anything above 50% is hyperinflation. All right, now let's take a look at creeping or walking inflation. Creeping or walking inflation. Okay, like the name says, creeping. If a baby creeps or if an adult creeps, it means that that adult is creeping or walking very slowly, right? Or tiptoeing in such a way that it doesn't want you to know that maybe is moving in a particular direction or it's going to pass through your back. So through that same perspective, creeping inflation occurs when the price level is rising slowly. This is a case of a single digit inflation between 1% to 3%. This kind of inflation is said to be good for the economy because it encourages spending, investment, and boosts employment growth. Working inflation is any inflation rate that is greater than 3% and less than 10%. All right. So creeping inflation between 1% to 3%, it rises slowly. Working inflation too is not that bad because it still falls within the 3 and less than 10. So it's still a single digit inflation. It's not bad at all. But the goal is that for macroeconomic stability, or for economic progress, the goal is that you want to keep the prices low and very stable so that the living standard of the population can be much better. Because if prices are low, okay, and people can afford goods and services, then it helps them to be able to make better decisions. Okay, it could, in fact, we say it could make a country much more safer. Okay, it reduces crime because if people can afford goods and services, there's no point them going to take what doesn't belong to them. All right. So both creeping and walking inflation are still much better because they are single digit inflation. What about spiral inflation? So spiral inflation occurs When a measure taken to tackle inflation, such as granting higher wages, leads to a further rise in general price levels. All right, so for spiral inflation, it occurs, for example, if we say the inflation rate of a country is rising, all right, and we would like to solve it, and we say, okay, let us increase wages. That was our plan, to use wages to tackle our inflation rate, rather than solving after implementing higher wages, rather than solving inflation. If inflation spirals or worsens off, then we could call that spiral inflation. It means when you take a certain strategy or step or decision to solve the problem of inflation and it worsens off, then we could call that spiral inflation. Okay, so let's move further. What are the types of inflation? For the types of inflation, we can have demand pull inflation. We can also have cost push inflation. Let's take a look at demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation occurs when aggregate demand, which is total spending within the economy, rises faster than aggregate supply, which is total production. That is AD, that's aggregate demand, exceeds the economy's productive capacity. This type of inflation shows that the economic agents, individual firms and government, have more money to spend due to lower interest rates, lower income or corporation tax, etc. Demand pull inflation can be seen in figure 4.1. We're going to take a look at that figure together. All right. What about cost push inflation? Right. This type of inflation is induced by rising cost of production. Higher production costs are successfully passed onto the consumers in the form of higher prices. This inflation can also be seen from the angle of wage push inflation. Wage push inflation is coined specifically for inflation resulting from increase in salaries and wages. Cost push inflation can be seen in figure 4.2. I quickly wanted to state something under demand pull inflation. You know, if you take a look at business cycle, which we are going to take a look at soon, okay, one of the chapters, if an economy is at the peak, if an economy is at the peak, you could have a situation where AD is rising faster than AS, or AD exceeds the economy's productive capacity. Because at that time, unemployment is very low, people have higher incomes, and also at that time, the prices of goods and services will be increasing. Okay, so we're going to take a look at that in business cycle. But in the business cycle, just keep in mind, we could have, when the economy is at the peak, okay, we could have a situation where AD is rising faster than AS, meaning that AD exceeds an economic's productive capacity. Yeah. And so there has to be an intervention of the central bank, all right, to what? To increase interest rate so as to mop up the amount of money in circulation. All right, like I said, you don't want a situation where you have excess money around the economy. Okay, because an increase in money supply comes with an increase in the prices of goods and services. So you have excess money supply, that could tell you that the prices of goods and services will rise. Okay, so now let's take a look at the graph of demand pull inflation. For demand pull inflation, like the name says, demand pull, of course, you know, the AD curves shift to the right. If the AD curves shift to the right, okay, this is how to draw it. You have this, you have this. Let me use my pen. So just to show how it's drawn, AD, AS. So AD, AS, or this is AS. And no, this is AD, sorry. AD. This is AD, yeah. AD. And this is AS. AS or short-run aggregate supply. Of course, you know that there's long-run aggregate supply. When we move further in some of our topics, we'll see the long-run aggregate supply. So this AS or SRAS, so you have this, you have this, okay? Proven price, proven output, okay, or real GDP. All right. So if demand rises faster, aggregate demand rises faster than aggregate supply, then AD is going to shift upward. If AD shifts upward, to push price upwards, yeah, it will also increase output. Okay. So this is, so you could say P2, you could say Y2. Okay. Of course, if prices are rising, if you take a look at the law of supply, if prices are rising, what will suppliers? Of course, suppliers will produce more because it needs more profit for them. Yeah. So this is demand pull inflation. Now, what about cost push inflation? For cost push inflation, the curve that is going to shift is the short run. Okay, before cost push inflation, let me answer what are some of the factors that can make AD to shift to the right? We have low interest rate. Low interest rate simply means businesses have more capacity to borrow, and individuals will not put their money in the bank because they know interest rate is low. So they would prefer to spend their money. A low income or corporation tax. If the tax at which the government levies on, let's say, businesses or uh, salary earners is low, that will also give them increase their capacity to increase their purchasing power, increase their capacity to spend, and so that would also shift AD to the right. Increase consumer and business confidence. If people feel very confident, for example, let's say about the direction in which their country is going, they don't have any issue investing their money within the economy and spending. Businesses will spend their money in the economy, and consumers also don't have an issue with spending money within the economy because they know things are moving in the right trajectory or in the right direction. Okay. Increased government spending. Okay. Increased government spending also push AD outwards. And government spending could come in terms of building new schools, could come in terms of building new roads, could come in terms of building new hospitals, could come in terms of, so those things the government would do to make the living standard much better falls under government spending. All right. So these are some of the factors that pushes AD to the right. What about cost push? For cost push, a short-run aggregate supply is going to move to the left. Okay. So if it moves to the left, what then happens is that the price of goods and services will rise and real GDP will fall again. You see, because if the prices of inputs rises, okay, what businesses use in producing goods and services, if those inputs rise, what do you think the businesses would do? Of course, it will reduce their production. Aside reducing their production, it might even lead to unemployment. If it becomes so high, they might just feel, oh, we can't afford to pay some people their salaries, so we gotta push this down. Okay, and those prices will be passed on to the consumer. So that's not a good one. That's not a good one. All right. So for cost push inflation, the short-term aggregate supply shift to the left. For demand pull inflation, the aggregate demand shifts to the right. The aggregate demand shift to the right. And this is what you have here. Okay. Now, what are some of the factors that can make SRAS to shift to the left? You have increases in the price of raw materials. You have increase in wages. You have increase in business stocks. You have increase in the price of raw materials due to weaker exchange rates. Now, how do we measure inflation? So what are the yardsticks? We could use CPI, we could use PPI, we could use GDP price deflator. For consumer price index, CPI is a measure of overall prices of goods and services bought by typical consumer. For producer price index it measures the price of a basket of goods and services bought by firms rather than consumers, right? So for producer price index, we're also going to take a look at the prices of inputs. What about GDP price deflator? GDP price deflator reflects the price of all goods and services produced domestically, and then further said that GDP deflator and CPI tend to move in the same direction. Now let's see, how do we calculate CPI and inflation rate, right? So the table shows how to calculate the CPI and the inflation rate for hypothetical economy in which consumers buy only salad and burgers. So step one, survey consumers to determine a fixed basket of goods. So those fixed basket of goods here, we have 4 salads and 2 burgers. All right, 4 salads and 2 burgers. So let us see the prices of which salads sell for 2019, 2020, 2021. And let us also see the prices which burger sells for 2019, 2020, and 2021. So you can see the prices 1, 2, 3, yes, and 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3 for salad and 2, 3, 4 for burger. So now let us compute the cost of the basket of goods in each year, right? Just like we did when we were calculating real GDP and nominal GDP, we're going to have something similar, all right? So we just, for example, you already have the fixed basket for salads. So you use the price of 2019 1 times, you see here 1 times 4 salads plus 2 times 2 burgers. You do the same for next, 2 times 4 salad. So you're going to have 4 all the way here. You're going to have 2 all the way here. So plus it times. Okay, so you could see the value. So 1 times 4 is 4, 2 times 2 is 4, so you're going to have 8. That is the 8 that we have here. You say 2 times 4 is 8, 2 times 3 is 6. What do you have? You're going to have 14, like you have here. You have 3 times 4 is 12. You have 2 times 4 is 8. What you're going to have 20 here. All right, so the cost of the basket of each goods in each year, by the time we'll multiply it and sum it, you're going to have 8 euros, 14 euros, 20. So 2019 is 8 euros. Okay, 2020 is 14 euros, and 2021 is 20 euros. Okay, so when you combine salad and burger together, they're going to cost 8 euros in 2019. In 2020, the basket is going to cost 14 euros. In 2021, the basket is going to cost 20 euros. Now, let's move to our next, right? So the next step would be that we want to check, we also want to calculate the CPI. So to calculate the CPI, we are going to pick a base year. So we're going to pick 2019 as the base year. We're going to pick 2019 as the base year. So if we pick 2019 as the base year, that will be 8 over 8, yes, multiplied by 100. Okay, yes. So whatever you have, you see that we have 100. Do the same thing for CPI in 2020. So you're going to have 14 over 8 multiplied by 100 is 175. That's a CPI. Then CPI in 2021, it would be 20 over 8 multiplied by 100. You can see that is 250. So these are the values of the consumer price index. Now, through the CPI, we can calculate the inflation rate. So how do we calculate what is the percentage of increase in price from 2019 to 2020? That will be 175, yes, minus 100 divided by 100 multiplied by 100. So I'm sure we're going to have 75%. Okay. We're going to do the same thing for um, for 2021. You see 250 minus 175 divided by 175 times 100 over 1, which is 43%. So the prices of goods and services increased by 75% in from 2019 in 2020, and the price of goods and services increased by 43% in 2021. That is from 2020 to 2021. You see that prices fell from the percentage, the rate at which the prices were increasing fell. Okay, compared to 2020 is 75%, and compared to 2021 is 43%. This is not known as deflation. This is known as disinflation. This is known as disinflation because deflation takes a look at you have negative values for deflation. You have negative values for deflation. Okay. So this is called, so the rate at which the prices were increasing fell from 75% to 43%. This is not deflation. This is called disinflation, right? Now, let us examine deflation. Did I define deflation somewhere here? 1 second. No, not yet. All right, so let's move to deflation now. So deflation can be defined as a decrease in the general price levels of goods and services. This can be because of the decrease in AD and low money supply. Deflation can be good or bad. Okay, so deflation can be good or it can be bad. So what is bad deflation? Another name for bad deflation is demand side deflation or malignant deflation. So demand side deflation comes with lower growth and it is long-term and anticipated. Anticipated deflation is dangerous and can lead to a deflationary spiral. So what is a deflationary spiral? A deflationary spiral is a downward economic circle where falling prices lead to reduced consumer spending, lower business revenues, job losses, and further price declines. This self-reinforcing process can severely harm an economy. So what about, we're going to take a look at the graph, all right? What about good deflation? So for good deflation, we can call it benign deflation. We can call it supply side deflation. Supply side deflation comes with higher growth and it is short-term and unanticipated. A short-term deflation is beneficial to consumers because and falling prices are beneficial to firms because of falling prices of input. Okay, so short-term deflation is beneficial to consumers because of falling prices and beneficial to firms because of falling prices of inputs. All right. So let's look at the graph. This is for demand side deflation or um, bad deflation or malignant deflation. All right, you could see that AD shift to the left. If AD shift to the left, you see that right here, you also see that prices fall, and you also see that output falls. Okay, that's not good for the economy. We want to be able to produce goods and services that can meet the needs of people. Okay, so if prices are falling and output is falling, it's not a good one at all. All right. Even if prices are falling, you want a situation where the output is increasing. Okay, because output increasing means firms or businesses or suppliers are producing more. Yeah. So, what about supply side deflation or good deflation or benign deflation? You can see that SRAS shift to the right. If SRAS shift to the right, you see that price falls. However, output increases, and this is good one. This is a good one for the economy if output increases. Okay. So let us uh, quickly talk about nominal and real interest rate. So the nominal interest rate is the interest rate before adjusting for inflation. All right. The nominal interest rate is also the interest rate that the savings account pays. The nominal interest rate tells you how fast the number of pounds or euros in your bank account rises over time. Okay. Um, I should take this away. Or let's take a look at real. So for real, so if it's going to be the formula for nominal interest rate, that will be nominal interest rate equals real interest rate plus inflation. Okay, that's what it means. That will be real interest rate plus inflation. What about real interest rate? The real interest rate is the interest rate adjusted for inflation. Okay, the real interest rate is the difference between the nominal interest rate and the real rate of inflation. The real interest rate tells you how fast the purchasing power of your bank account rises over time. All right. The formula can be written as RT equals IT equals it's this pi symbol. So the R is the real interest rate. Okay, I is the nominal interest rate, and the pi in this equation is the inflation rate. So you have review question: what does cost of living mean? What is inflation and what is meant to be? What is inflation and inflation rate? What are the forms of inflation? What are the types of inflation? How do we measure inflation? What is deflation and deflation rate? What are the types of deflation? Draw the graph. How do you mathematically express the relationship between the value of a unit of money and price level? Okay, and these are the references. Okay, here you still have differentiate between real and nominal interest rate, and how do we calculate CPI and inflation rate. All right. So this is this for this chapter. All right. So in summary, countries want to be, like I said, leaders of each countries want to ensure that the prices of goods and services are stable, because if prices are rising so much so fast than the income of individuals, that could mean that people are becoming poorer. Poorer in the sense that they might not be able to afford the basic things to live each day. All right. So countries should be mindful to ensure that a lot of policies has to be involved in that. A lot of strategic and macroeconomic policies has to be involved that in such a way that consumers and producers are happy in the sense that their needs are being met. All right. So I'm going to see you in my next class. We are still going to do talk about productivity and growth. We're still going to talk about business cycle. We are still going to talk about unemployment. Okay, so I'll see you in my next class. Bye bye.